reading the news. Hello and welcome to Wednesday at 1. First I will gush. Shortlist, this is the third time I'm in shortlist. Ta-da! Double page spread. How cool is that? So they asked me to talk about TV's true tough guys and how people like Tinky Winky from the Teletubbies is really a tough guy, amongst others. So check it out. It's going to be on, I think it's already on the Facebook thing, but I just needed to gush. Also, I'll gush about I'm 54 years and 1 day old. Like, happy birthday to me. So, yesterday was a wonderful day because I didn't cry or squeal when we went to the London dungeon. But enough about me, enough about my birthday. This Wednesday at 1 is a very special Wednesday at 1 because I am surrounded by good people who work with fathers. And these are the good people. And these are 4 books that Noel Janis-Norton wrote. Noel was my original parenting teacher in the 90s or
I think about 20 years ago.
Long time ago. And recently I came back from a big party in Italy where not only the whole family but other guests who I'd never met before kept quoting this woman Noel. And it's like, what, you know her as well? So it's like I'm sitting next to a legend. And I'm really chuffed because not only did that change my communication skills, boundaries, and knowing how to deal better with parents, but also boardroom bullies, grown-ups, all sorts of people, and I picked up skills that are just invaluable. Now, the incredible thing for me, I've been facilitating men's groups probably 16, 17 years now, and some of the blokes from the early days who came in going, well, I don't know how to be a decent man and meet a decent woman, or I don't know how to be a decent man and meet an indecent woman, or, well, you know, there's the whole dating thing and falling in love thing and everything. Now, a lot of those blokes are at the stage where they're fathers, either new fathers or they've been a father for a while, and it's come up in the groups quite a lot over time. Not just parenting issues, but also issues of their own issues that need to be dealt with so they're not passed on to the kids. And also their own issues that almost come up like as gifts of, I didn't realise I was carrying this. It was brought up because I'm a father with my kid, but I need to deal with this so I'm a better person and I can be a better father. And there are so many things that have come up. So I had the bright spark idea of asking Noel to, I call it men father. I know it's bad English, but that's cheap branding for you. Noel calls it men fathering, which is better English. You were a school teacher?
Yes, and I'm still a teacher in a different way.
Yeah. So we are launching Men Father Inc. 20th of September in London, and it's basically the first session will be exploring it as a men's group, sitting with fathers and listening to what's needed, their own issues, parenting issues, family issues, issues from left field. It really doesn't matter. So specifically for fathers, and let's see where that goes. So how about the way that we run men's groups is they're generally rounds of questions or issues, and I guess that's my way of communication. So how about a quick intro of each, and let's see who's in the room and take it from there. Over to you.
Okay, so my name is Nelson Rodrigues and I run a personal development for men group. I deal with issues from fathers, mainly men, we I specialise in identity, rediscover the identity, and also Kenny mentioned things from parenting issues that come a lot up for my clients, and also you know, one of the things that you know I help to do is stop the suicide rates.
And you came from Birmingham today?
Yes.
And you were up at 5:30 in the morning?
I was slightly earlier than that.
So he was up that early.
Yeah.
He's a father. And he looks this good.
Yay.
So, and you said some of your work is in the room, but a lot of it's online these days.
Absolutely, yeah.
While we're here, before I forget, how do people contact you? What's the web address?
Well, the web address is personaldevformen.com or nelson-rodrigues.com. You can go on there, and there is options to either book a private session with me or enroll one of my support groups that I run on a monthly basis, or look out for the workshops that are coming up.
So that's Nelson. This is me. Do you know what? Much as I'm not a father, and much as I don't really intend to be a father, I feel that a lot of my work is kind of sometimes proxy father. Even for fathers and grandfathers, it's holding that space. Sometimes it's proxy big brother, sometimes it's proxy best friend, whatever it is that's needed to hold that space to allow people to change, I guess. And that's the most courageous thing that people do, is it's fine to gain the information, but it's about living it beyond the old restrictions. So I feel I play that role. And I've often said that if I was a father, it's very possible that I wouldn't do this work, because I don't know if I could do both. But the whole thing about being a father kind of scares the living daylights out of me. So maybe we should move on to Noel.
Okay. I'm Noel Janis-Norton. I'm the founder and the director of a parenting program that's called Calmer, Easier, Happier Parenting. And the first thing that I always tell people about this program is to notice that the name of it isn't Calm, Easy, Happy Parenting. And that's because there's nothing about human beings that I've ever discovered in my extremely long life that's just plain calm, easy, and happy. So I cannot offer parents bliss. I don't, excuse me, I don't have a magic wand that's going to take away the natural, normal, inevitable problems that come along with being human. So that's the bad news. But the good news is that I can share with you specific strategies that are practical and effective that will make family life significantly calmer, easier, and happier. So it's all in the And today, specifically, we're talking about how fathers can contribute to family life. So that's me.
Before you go,
Sure.
I'm sitting next to a TV star. I remember when I put on Facebook, my friend Noel is going to be on, was it Good Morning Britain?
I have been on there, yeah.
And someone from my school in Wales sent a message back, oh my God, you know someone that's going on TV? And it was, that's how it is in the little town I was brought in. And through that, amongst other things, so you've written, what, 9 books?
I've written 8 books. The most recent 4, which are right here, are the Calmer, Easier, Happier series. And 2 of these books have become Amazon UK bestsellers. I always feel like I'm boasting when I say that, but
it's a huge achievement. And what a brilliant contribution.
Thank you.
So on behalf of all the readers and the happier, calmer, easier, happier families, thank you.
You're welcome.
Paul.
Hello, my name is Paul Harrild. I'm a personal trainer. I specialise in fathers, in dads. The reason behind that is I lost my father when I was 12 years old to ill health and stress. So it became something that I was really passionate about. I'm a stepfather myself to 2 kids that are not kids anymore, 22 and 17. So I'm just coming out the other end of being a father. I also run cooking classes for dads and group classes as well. So, that's me.
Do you do your stuff live or online, or both?
It's a bit of both. So I have intensive clients that I see. I also have online clients, and some of the cooking is online as well.
So Do you find, because I wondered with both cooking and exercise, that they can actually make the time away from their children and away from things to be at the cooker, chopping things, chatting with you, or is it distraction, distraction, distraction?
I guess that's the beauty of the cooking lessons, because they're virtual and they're online. It's in the family home, so you often get the kids running through, making noise in the background, and they just become part of that lesson. So
that's brilliant. So it's in the heart of the family.
Yeah.
And what about, do you do online personal training as well?
Yes, I do, yeah. So it's more of an individual thing for them.
So do you get people's children to like hold on to their backs and then they have to do extra push-ups or something?
It's an idea. I haven't tried it yet.
Or their fronts. How does the online exercise work?
So the client or the father will have a program that they stick to. They check in with me once a month online, and we go through any issues that might come up. They send me videos on feedback on their form. I write nutrition plans and programs for them, and go through some kind of building habits, lifestyle habits with them as well. So
it sounds like a package. It sounds like not just a full package, but also a journey where you monitor them.
Very much so, yeah. And I think the biggest part of it is having someone to hold you accountable to that.
Yeah.
Having the feedback and a space to talk about your stuff. You know, it's I found that quite valuable for myself and for them as well.
That's a big one generally in the men's groups, and I wonder whether you have all found, whether in your own lives or with your clients, that once there are children, then accountability is out the window and it's all about chaos. How do you manage stuff like that? Anyone?
Yes, I can talk about that. The Americans, of which I'm one, have a phrase called a CRU. And a CRU is a child rearing unit. And unfortunately, too many couples become a CRU. They're focusing their attention and their thoughts on their children, but not on the couple relationship. With dire consequences.
Yeah. That is huge for me. And I kind of flashed straight back to probably 20, 30 years ago when I was speaking to a client's mother, and she told me how difficult it was at times to put her relationship with her father before the children, because the instinct was children first, they come first. Even, you know, she even said the shadow of this was, what if he leaves me? Then at least the children are fine with me and they won't notice. Meanwhile, they were very much in love, but these things come through. And how difficult it was for her, but how chuffed, or whatever the grown-up word for chuffed is, that she did that because her children are all in stable, loving families.
Because she set a good example.
Exactly, and the children know where they stand and they're free and creative, but it is setting the example of passing the love on and people knowing where they stand, people knowing their roles. And in the men's groups, I think there are a lot of us blokes where that wasn't the case. And it could be that the mother or the father either put us or seemed to put us in between the parents and kind of above. And then, you know, especially with blokes comes the whole eatable thing and the whole, even to take it to the extreme, Pia Melody wrote a book called Facing Love Addiction, and there was a section in there that blew me away, and it was called Emotional Sexual Abuse. And it's just like, who am I, where do I stand, how special am I, what are my boundaries, etc., etc. Is that something that you found you've worked with your parents?
In Calmer, Easier, Happier Parenting, we teach strategies. We're not therapists, although, of course, there's a psychological element to everything, but it's very practical what we teach. So we teach parents some strategies for strengthening the couple relationship. and if it feels as if they need therapy, we'll refer them onward. But therapy, in my experience, can't take the place of actually doing some things differently.
Yeah.
So the two things that I always recommend, that I was talking to you about earlier today, the first one is to have a weekly date night. Now, this is not controversial. Every single relationship counselor tells their clients to have a weekly date night. But by the time people arrive in therapy, often they don't even want to be in the same room with the other person. So often it just feels to them as if it's too late. It isn't actually too late, but they sort of have to force themselves sometimes. Sometimes parents are sort of willing to do this, to spend one evening a week with their partner, but there's a lot of resentments, and they can't really imagine that they would both enjoy it, so they keep putting it off. Or, and this is more likely to be the mother, might be thinking it's selfish, it's self-indulgent, there's other things I should be doing.
It's the shoulds. There are so many shoulds.
Yeah. So one evening a week, that's a proper date. And I remind parents that when they used to date, they would dress up. And they would make sure to try and be in a good mood and to talk about interesting things. The research has shown that the longer a couple stays together, the more similar they become outwardly. They talk about the same things, they even use the same phrases. But inwardly, an interesting thing often is happening, which is that they're becoming polarized. Now, opposites attract, so it's likely that a couple is going to have differences to begin with. But imagine the differences are this far apart. Well, once you have children, and there are decisions to be made, often parents drift further and further apart, which is what I mean by polarized. And the way that parents try to solve that is by discussing. And you know, discussing is painful. It's boring. Nobody likes to do it because really, a lot of it is arguing and trying to convince the other person that you're right and they're wrong. And nothing good ever comes of that. But decided to have one evening a week where you just go and enjoy each other. That really helps. So it helps mothers to be more effective, it helps fathers to be more effective, it helps the family to be more cohesive. So that's the first strategy. And the second strategy that I recommend for couples to be more like couples is what I call a nightly date half hour. So every evening that both parents are home, which is not the case always, but every evening that both parents are home, once the children are in bed, before you do anything else, before you do the washing up, before you send that important email, before you watch the evening news, spend a half an hour with your partner doing something that you both enjoy, that is not talking about the children, not in front of a screen, because not much relating happens when you're in front of a screen, not talking about any problems. And sometimes parents say to me, well, what would I do in that half hour? And I say, well, remember, what are the things you like to do? And they can come up with them. Could be Scrabble, could be chess, could be walking around the garden. And if your children are old enough to be left alone, it could be taking a walk in the neighborhood. Could be listening to music, could be cooking together, could be eating together, could be telling jokes. And of course, it could be cuddling.
Being together, loving together.
Yeah.
So you are a therapist.
Yes.
What type of a therapist are you? And what would you say are the most common things that you find you've been working with, especially to do with fathers and fathering?
Yeah, so I'm a psychotherapist, and one of the most common things with fathers is their lack of role models. They grow up without a father figure, or the father was wasn't present or wasn't engaged. And I guess is what Noel was saying about, you know, finding the time to the family get together as couples, or even with the kids. Sometimes, you know, parents, either the father or the mother, works away long hours, and they find that they're not spending enough time with the family. So the drifting apart that you mentioned earlier is just like not just between the couple, but it's the couple and the kids, which the situation becomes more complex. And then the whole thing of being a father kicks in, and the self-worthiness is in, am I providing enough for my family, not just financially, but emotionally? And on the other end is, are they being looked after well as well? Also the fathers think, I feel alone. That's one of the things that I find with the men's groups is that, you know, fathers do feel isolated, and this is where other things kick in, not just from the present relationships, but also from their inner childhood, from past traumas, and others complicated, you know, mental health issues as well, you know, such as small things as stress or even, you know, depression. So yes, I completely agree with Noel in terms of finding that time to spend together. I can say that being a father and being married as well with kids is so hard. It's not easy.
How old are your kids?
4, 5 and 16.
Wow.
So I've got the range. 2 girls and 1 boy.
You said finding the time,
Yes.
but I don't think that's exactly accurate, because it's not as if one day you'll open a cupboard that you didn't know you had and you'll find some time. It's really about making the time. Because we've only got 24 hours, but we do have 24 hours every single day. Time is really the only renewable resource that there is. So we can make the time. It's a matter of putting that ahead of some other things.
And Paul, how would you say, because I'm guessing people would justify going to either Noel or Nelson, but as far as handling meat, cooking meat, exercise, it's like, no, I'll just sleep. How do you manage that, and how do people find you, and how do they fit or create the time for that?
I mean, I think there's a real need, not everybody, but some guys just need to move and exercise. And neglecting that part, the anger can build up, and you know, frustration, and just, you know, a lot of what we do nowadays is in the head. Is, you know, we're on the computer, we've got jobs that are different. Guys are not as physical as they used to be, and I feel that with some guys they just need to move. So that's a big part of what I offer, is teaching that or reminding people of that. It's self-help, you know, it's looking after yourself in that relationship. Because if you neglect, you're not going to be a good father.
And is it that you educate people about this and then they buy in, or is it that they realise I am withering, wasting away in front of a computer, not moving a lot, I'm getting old, this is not good? Like, which way around is it usually?
Yeah, usually people come to see me when they're their least fittest or overweight.
So when it's an issue, they come to you.
Yeah.
I'm guessing same for all of us.
What I wanted to say about exercise is that we know that boys have more testosterone and also more adrenaline. And exercise and movement disperses the adrenaline and sort of burns it up. And dads need to be role models for movement. Otherwise, with boys, the frustrations, the disappointments, the annoyances, the anger can build up, and they don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, I agree. It's having a stepson at the moment that's 17, and he's on his computer. A lot of the time with his friends, there's nothing really physical going on, He's in the later years of school where exercise has dropped off now. It's not a class that they teach anymore. So the only exercise
It's not
he
a
gets,
class they teach anymore.
because he's doing his A-levels.
Oh, so you get
So
choice and you
it's-
don't have to do PE.
Yeah, so he's chosen
Ah.
media and music, and they're both sitting down on a computer type.
Even the music.
So do you get him active with you?
Yeah, he comes and joins in on the group stuff that we do. On Sunday, we ended up having a little bit of a sparring session, boxing, and he got to let off some steam with a friend.
Yeah.
And that seemed to really motivate him, because boys at that age, they seem to want to know how to handle themselves and defend themselves, and it's quite a nice way in, really, if it's taught in a disciplined way. So, and I remember being 18 myself, that was the way I found exercise, was through boxing, boxing with a friend, and letting off some steam. Like you said, the whole testosterone, when that kicks in and there's nowhere for it to go, that's when problems come up, I feel.
So Carl Munson and Adam Woods are watching.
Oh, cool.
Carl says, "This is great, thank you," from Portugal.
Wonderful. I'm going to see Carl next month. And Adam has signed up to come to Men Father Inc. With what you were just saying, it sounds like healthy boxing. It sounds like it's held, it's safe, they're learning skills, they're moving, and it's not just aggression. I was going to say ruffians, but that wouldn't. It sounds so good. And also, there's the old saying that I've heard my father say, which is, "Don't do as I do, do as I say."
Which never worked.
Never! So would it be fair to say that an unconscious so-called child will turn into the laziest of their parents, or the something of their parents? How does it work?
There isn't a clear path like that, because there are so many contributing factors. But the influence of example is huge.
And there's a brilliant picture of you and your stepson with sticks,
Yes.
fighting. It was like a couple of samurais going. It was, what a brilliant picture. What I would give to have a picture or a memory of my father and I doing that. That is just lucky guy. Do you all find that you are instrumental in getting fathers and children to interact? Or do they do it anyway, or does it depend on the family? Because I know these days, the number of youngsters that I have worked with and the number of older men who say they aren't leaving their rooms, they're not getting away from their computers, they're not interested in even going for a walk, and then it gets worse. They don't know how to communicate, they don't know how to ask anyone the way from A to B. They can do computers and send facial expressions like that, but they're not showing up on their faces. And then to take it to the absolute extreme is, we did a Men Speak radio show that's not released yet with the spokesperson for the incels, excellent guy, Jack Peterson. And he is an example of being left in his room to his own devices, researching things. How do I make myself better? How do I become a bloke? How do I everything? And it's all deeper and deeper down a hole. Not learning from community, not learning from positive outcomes from other people, but sadly finding a community with incels. Incels stands for involuntary celibates, and it's a community of blokes. And he said himself that the goodness that he got from this community is he was met with who he is, pain and all, the stuckness, the confusion, etc. But rather than finding a way out, his first step was, people are accepting me for who I am, and I'm not being bullied. And you know, this is all public, so I'm not breaking any confidences. His bullying started very, very young, and it was girls bullying him throughout school. And so it carried on and on and on. So how does a boy stand up to a girl? I think question number 2 is how do boys stand up to girls, maybe. Question number 1 is what do you do to make families families? And I know you've written a book on screens, and here it is.
That's
Read
right.
the book.
We have a joke at our centre, which is when enough parents ask the same question, I write a book about it. Which is why we've got calmer, easier, happier screen time. Because weaning children and teenagers off their screen dependency is a huge problem for parents. And it's a problem that didn't exist not only a generation ago, it didn't exist even 10 years ago as the problem that it is now. So parents are confused, bewildered, upset, feeling like giving up, but they don't want to give up, so they end up shouting and threatening consequences. It's a mess. So in this book, obviously, I talk about the causes of the various kinds of screen dependency, but the main focus is on what parents can do about it. And the good news is there's a lot that parents can do. We don't have to just let kids isolate in their room and withdraw from the family. We shouldn't, because it's not good for them, and it's not good for any family member, and it's not so impossible to do. There are strategies that really help.
I've been around this, and I've been scared by the way some of these children just go off. It's war. And in a way, it has felt like taking the drug away from the child. It's a big deal to manage. Have you managed things like this?
I try. I also have a 16-year-old son, just turned 16 as well, and it's not easy to, get him active. But for me as well as a parent, I find sometimes that I'm having to go beyond myself as well to be active as well, so we can have that bond as well, father and son. But at the same time, trying to get him away from the drugs, today's drugs, because I remember when I was growing up, we used to play outside most of the time, climbing trees and things like that. We don't do that anymore.
Well, you do.
Secretly.
No, it's on the video.
Oh yeah.
So the last time
on my days off
that Paul and Nelson saw each other was at Men Camp, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And up the tree, diddly diddly. Especially you went right up. Have you still got that scar at the back of your nose? So big boy playtime is really good to demonstrate small boy playtime and girl, because it's like they will surely turn into the best or the worst of us, depending on how much fun we seem to be having. So we may as well have fun being the best that we can be and passing that on.
And also depending on how much time we spend as parents one-on-one with each child.
With each child is the key.
So I talk about that a lot in my books and in my private consultations and in my talks at schools, that it tends to be that the whole family does things together, which is fine, that's nice. But in addition to that, we also need what I call special time, which is a bit of a misnomer because it's not special in the sense that you're doing something special. It's not a special treat. What's special about special time is that it's one parent with one child and the siblings are not around. Even siblings who mostly get on with each other well, there's still, as any parent will tell you, there still tends to be an undercurrent of rivalry that the parent has to manage. Whereas if it's one-on-one, one parent with one child, you can just relax, and the child can just relax. And you can be your best self, and the child can be their best self, and you can have a great time. Many of the young people who isolate themselves in their rooms in front of a screen no longer believe that the parent of the same gender even really wants to be with them. They know that, of course, that parent loves them, but they don't really know that that parent likes them and wants to hang out with them. So one of the things I talk about in my books is this special time, not to make it a suggestion. It's not an offer. It's something that happens. That the parent is making it clear that this is something that happens in our family. In addition to family time, there's this special one-on-one time. And I talk in my book about how sometimes, especially boys, if they aren't having enough one-on-one time with their fathers, they get very resentful and angry, and they don't even want to risk just opening up and allowing themselves to want to be with their dad, because it feels to them as if their dad has let them down. And of course, the dad never would let them down on purpose, but it may be that the dad gave up when they were making a fuss, or the dad got involved in his work. And one of the biggest complaints that kids have about their parents is that they're on their screens too much, which is funny considering that's also a complaint that parents have about their kids. So we can bring kids back from depression and anxiety and even suicidal thoughts and being bullied in an amazing way with special time. Are you nodding because you found that as well?
Yes, yeah, I definitely agree with what you said there, because even though I don't do it very often, but I find that when I do have this special time, trying to have one kid at the time, I find that they become more calmer, and even as a father or as a parent, the communication becomes a bit easier, temporarily.
So you could do it almost every day.
Yes, in a sense, yeah, you could.
Because a lot of times a parent feels like it has to be a whole day adventure or a half day at the weekend. And those are nice, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about 10, 15, 20 minutes a day, whenever you can do it. Because that's what's going to show your child that you want to be with them. And it will give you an opportunity to share so many interesting things with them that they really would benefit from, but they're not getting it otherwise.
It's
So you could do it every day.
Yes, yeah, I think I'll definitely implement that every day, and I'll
Good.
recommend it to every parent as well.
Good.
One of the things that as a parent, I think we need to come away from the fact that sometimes we look at our kids and think, oh, they don't really want to go hang around with us for 10, 15 minutes.
I was going to ask you exactly about that, because you've got a 16-year-old son.
Yeah.
So have you been through the stages where he wants more of you, then you're uncool, then he doesn't want you at all, then he wants lots of you, and have you had the pull me push you thing from him?
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
Yeah. I think I try to do as best as I can. What I say to my son is, I say to him, sometimes, I'm going to be your friend. I'm not going to be your father. We're just going to play as friends. Just tell him in advance. Let's have a play of football or something. Let's just be friends. I'm not going to be your father. Then I'm just going to be your friend, your football mate.
So you won't be in trouble for scoring a goal against me.
Yeah,
you won't be punished for being better at football
or swearing in the pitch or something, that kind of thing. But yeah, just make him relax a little bit more. I think in terms of what's so there's no expectations of getting in trouble or told off or something for shouting or something.
So you basically say, now we're going in the friend zone. Now we're going in the father zone, so he's clear of the boundaries and he's not confused about where do I stand and what's going on.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Right, because I find that has often been a huge confusion with a lot of kids who become adults who say, well, I didn't know if I was her husband or her father or her son or which one was playing out, and 1 minute I'm useful, the next minute I'm being told off for being useful, and it's like mixed messages, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So you're saying announce it.
Yeah.
The beginning and end. It's
Yeah.
like coming into a small Welsh town. Croeso I Abergwaun, and then you leave and it says, right, you're out of Abergwaun now. So it's like that, you know the zone.
Yeah. I'm not so much about the end zone, but I think it's because I think I find after the time we spend together, it just becomes more, you know, he knows we go back to the normalities as such.
Right. And the normalities changed over the years?
It's become more towards a friendly zone, at least I try anyway.
How did that happen from, I guess, a very, what my fantasies say, dependent child into more pushing boundaries, into more accountable, into more freedom, into really pushing boundaries and doing something wrong, and then, you know, how if there is an answer in a nutshell.
I think looking at it, as we're talking about boundaries, you know, when I sort of tell him that let's just be friends, let's play football or something. I think it works both ways because it allows him to relax a bit more, but at the same time allows me to go into my childhood as well and just don't worry about it. You know, I don't have to be a dad for now. I can, you know, curse and swear at you, just hang out as friends, you know, as sort of as friends.
Which is also modelling that behaviour rather than you always have to be good. No.
Yes.
Be a beast on the football pitch and swear at people or whatever it is.
Talk bad about your parents. Even though I'm one of them. I always do that. I'll try. Go on, son, let it all out.
Cool. And how do you manage this, Paul? Because you also have a son, but I wonder whether it's different having a stepson, or whether that was or wasn't an issue, or it's actually brought you closer without those boundaries, or how have you navigated all of that?
Yeah, so it's been different, I guess, being stepfather to Oliver and Megan. As I always said to them, that I was their friend, but also that I'm a responsible adult when they're in my company. So if they're out of order, you know, or they're in danger, then I'm going to step in as an adult. But I would often play with them. I mean, I missed a lot of my childhood, losing my father at an early age and taking on responsibility for the family. So when the kids came along, it was like, yeah, I get to have fun too. This is
so
great.
You've got to relive your missing bit in a way.
I had so much fun as I was growing up.
That's my one loss not being a father, is like Lego.
Nothing is stopping you from playing with Lego.
I need to make Lego dates with myself. 10, 15
or with
minutes.
Angela, or with a friend.
No, I don't want to play with my Lego.
Well, we would have boys' nights.
Really?
As Oliver was growing up, we would have boys' nights, and we would do things that he enjoyed as well as we enjoyed as well. So, you know, I grew up in a generation of video games. Atari was just coming out as I was growing up, and so we would play video games together. And then there's more of an interaction. There's kind of it's different. We'd go out for curries together.
Just the two of you?
And my brother would come along as well.
So it's bloke time?
Yeah.
That's excellent.
We had that as Oliver was growing up, and it was great fun. It was good, like you said, Nelson, hanging out time where it can be, you know, you can let off some steam a little bit and be a bloke. So yeah, it was good.
And I remember when I lived in Sydney, when I first started running groups, and I would say to certain men in the community, if I am a father, then I would, my fantasy is for me to provide a good community for the children. And I would dish out jobs. If I was a father, then you would be responsible for their football and their physical blah, blah, blah. And you would be responsible for teaching them how to, you know, all the things I couldn't do. Play football properly, or take care of, I don't know whether it's self-care or cooking and stuff like that. So I've already been dishing out parts of my fatherhood to trusted brotherhood, I guess. Do you find that you do that with other fathers? How is it with other fathers and other sons? Because I'm guessing that some fathers might refer the physical side of their relationship, of their children to you, fighting or things like that, because they might be, I don't know, accountants that don't like to move too much or something.
Do you help those dads to be more physical with their boys?
I do, yeah. That's a big thing that comes up. I think, first of all, they seem to find their own movement and physical. And then
As they start
you
to
can
be more
hear them, they're
confident.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, so now I do want to run around with my child because I'm not out of breath or it's not uncomfortable. So it's, it does come up with that. So, but yeah, with the kids growing up myself, I was always the one that was out playing some sort of physical game, building an assault course or we'll go over to the woods together. So it was like in that community of kids, they saw me as the active one that would play around with them. So yeah.
And I'm guessing, listening to you now, that the way that you cook is playing around in the kitchen? Or is it very, you measure this and you do this?
It can be. It's real blokes cooking. It's just easy stuff, simple ingredients, throw them together. Practical cooking, practical nutrition.
That's the term I was waiting for.
Yeah.
Because in the video, so Bertie did the men camp video, and there's you up the tree, and there's you doing this when you're cooking and saying practical nutrition.
That's my catchword.
It so works.
Yeah.
It's spot on,
Yeah.
and it's not separate from life and the family. It's surely at the heart of the life and the family, as is playtime, as is playing big enough to get it wrong, communication, etc., etc. What's your web address? How do people contact you?
So my web address is www.5ept.com.
What's 5E?
So it was 5 elements personal training, and it just encompasses a lot of different things at the moment. But it essentially is personal training for dads.
Right.
So,
Because I don't know whether this is relevant, but you've done a lot with martial arts as well as, and you've done a lot of studies on how the body works and obviously the elements and all the capoeira and stuff like that. So I guess they get to cook with you, they get to rough and tumble with you, they get to dance with you, and they get to pretend to fight or something. So there's a lot more to you than just like beef, burgers and rough and tumble.
although that works.
Yeah, quality beef burger. And what's your web address? Is it?
www.calmerparenting.co.uk. And on our website, you'll see there's one tab that says free resources. And there are some videos and a lot of articles. And one of the articles that I think dads would find extremely helpful is called, it's got a long title, The Role of the Father and the Mother in Helping Boys to Be the Best They Can Be. And then there's another article that I think dads would find very useful, which is Taking Care of Your Couple Relationship. And those are extracts from my books.
Brilliant. Now, going back to what I was saying about dishing my jobs away when I lived in Sydney, I wonder whether there are 2 parts to this. The first part is, do fathers compete with each other to be alpha father? The ones that all the other mothers think is great, or the one who is the, I don't know, the biggest car, or the fittest, or what, is there that kind of competition? Even for the boys' attention. Does that kind of thing go on around fathers?
I think it does. It might look on the surface, but I think it does. For both between the father and the sons, and also between fathers, because obviously as a father, it's like, what better car do you drive, or better car do you provide your family or something, it shows how well you're looking after your family or something. And then if you sort of not confident or something, you've got a lot of self-esteem, then you're going to think that, you're going to internalize that, comparing, if your car's not better than your neighbours or something. But between fathers and sons, I think it's that relationship between, still keeping, as Paul said earlier, about being the responsible parent or responsible person, being on that position. I think what I not started to do, but what I learned to do was not be afraid of saying sorry, to apologise to my son, especially growing up, because a lot of the time fathers think that's going to undermine their their power or their authority over them. But that's completely the opposite. You know, they'll actually respect you for it, and at the same time, they also learn to say sorry back. Most of the time. So it's a complex thing, but I think it's when you look at it on, you know, on the practicality point of view, it's something that can be dealt with, and you can not let yourself look at material things and go beyond that, and trying to keep that connection, whether it's with the family or together, or just with the sons and parents, or
And do you find, because you're a big geezer, so do the other fathers cower? Or do the other sons think, why isn't he my father? Maybe they're not into their father's Bentley or something, but they're into WWF or something. So, do you know what I mean? I'm thinking about the different values and the competition and how that part works.
I think, I mean, I've been in circles of fathers where you can tell there's this competitive element going on. So whether it's how much you bench press or whether you've got the newest barbecue or the newest car, at the end of the day, the kids, the children don't care about that stuff. They care about whether you're spending time with them.
Attention.
Definitely. And I see that it's like they don't care. They don't care about that stuff.
Part two of this question was, I've worked with a lot of men who generally, I've brought up the issue of, it's a really weird one. So, the child is very cool and very sorted and very articulate and looks good. It's like a cool child. This is Coolsville with the child. Meanwhile, the father's a bit of a dork. and it can be the other way around, where I've had fathers, and this is the one that I generally need to name, is you were too cool for school in your life, and your child is not cool. Now, how do they manage that? Have you ever come across this? How do you suggest they manage things like that?
Well, sometimes the dad is sort of embarrassed by his son, because the son doesn't seem to be projecting the image that the dad wants for himself. And the more they have special time together, the more the dad will see the boy's wonderful qualities. So that he won't be just looking at the surface.
So rather than, am I being showy and acceptable to my community, it's more, I am being intimate and getting to know the heart and soul of my child. We are connecting. So it's a shift in values.
And every parent wants to connect deeply with each child that they have. They sometimes don't know it because they're so stressed and time poor and sleep deprived, and our job is to help them realize it so that they can do what it takes, which is to just hang out with their kids. One-on-one makes a huge difference.
And have you come across any of this? Have you been the parent to be proud of? Or am I staring enough?
No, I can't say I have. No.
You haven't seen this with other parents, with other kids? It's not such a big issue these days.
No, I've noticed.
And have you come across any of this, with the different type of value status?
Yeah, with myself, I think a little bit. Sort of back in the past, where you know, in the days I used to be more physical, and you know, be in all the sports club and all the, you know, the teams and school teams, college teams, and the athletics team and everything's team, and my son's completely different. Although he likes football, but he's into his music. You know, he's different things. He's a bit more chilled out. You know, he's although he, you know, he's physical as well, but he's a bit more in his own time kind of thing. So I had to adjust to that and just be proud of what he is and what, you know, his qualities, and be proud what he brings, you know, to me as well, because, you know, you learn so much being a father. And I do tell him that, you know, we're both learning. You know, you're learning to be my son, I'm learning to be your father. You know.
It sounds like you communicate brilliantly with your son.
I try.
It really does. It's like you are offering reality rather than a blag of this is how we should do it, and I'm not telling you why because I'm the grown-up, but it sounds like you are saying we're on this journey together.
Yeah.
But you're
Can
listening.
I ask you a question? I'm sorry.
Go for it.
When you say I try, what does that mean? Because parents often will say I try about something, and too often it means I'm not actually doing what I think I should be doing. I'm just wondering. So Kenny said, sounds like you communicate brilliantly, and you said, well, I try. So what does that I try mean?
She's sharp.
That's my job.
You are brilliant at it.
Thank you.
Good question, yeah. So my try is, say, out of 10 tries, 8 of them I will, and the other 2 I will at a later stage, if I'm too tired or whatever, and then I'll reconvene and let's go through the motions and apologise if it needs to, that sort of thing. So it's not that I never leave it too late, sometimes I just need my time apart from everyone. And then sort of reconvene back and say and do what I need to do and talk.
So
about
really, it's not that you try; it's that you do it.
Yeah, just delayed try. Do it.
I think it's important not to use the word try, because try suggests that you didn't make it, that something stopped you.
Also, that it's a struggle.
Yes, true. And actually, you didn't let it drift. You did it just a bit later.
Yeah.
So it's not a try. You did it.
I'm curious about what the time is.
It is now about 2.
Look at that, an hour already. Wow. What have we not talked about, or what have we not said that you might have wanted to, if anything? I mean, and before it slips my mind, much as I'm over the moon that we're starting to take care of fathers, the one area that I'm so often asked about is what can be provided for women who are bringing up boys without a man in their lives. And that's going to be for another chapter and another story, but my God, that's important. It's a huge, huge issue, and something needs to be done.
It's very huge because the research shows that when boys don't have a positive male influence, they're susceptible not only to gangs, but even to be groomed for sexual abuse.
Yeah.
And their likelihood of finishing school and going on to either further or higher education is reduced. And they're more likely to get in trouble with the law. They're more likely to do some kind of risky sexual behavior underage. So boys need positive male role models, and if it's not the dad, for whatever reason, then it needs to be somebody else. And in my book, Calmer, Easier, Happier Boys, I talk about what those role models can be. And actually, in the article that I was mentioning that's on our website, I talk about that as well.
Brilliant. And I must say that working with men who have been sexually abused as boys, beyond boarding school and stuff like that, there is that pattern. Each boy that I have worked with, and each man who was abused as a boy, lacked attention. Whoever the abuser was could see that that boy needed something, needed engaging, and so easily built trust, gave attention. And I don't know whether with some of them it feels more like a parent role, but some of them, strangely, it was almost like a friend at the same level role. But that's the pattern. That's very, very, very often the pattern, and that is hugely, hugely important to bear in mind. And then when we talked about, when I brought up the women bringing up boys without a male role model, that was the thing, that was the alarm bell at the back of my mind, thinking, who is safe? I think there are statistics about abuse coming from within the family and within the community more than strangers. But who and how and where? So, can of worms for another time, but my God, this is important.
It would be good to do a workshop on that.
I think that would be hugely subscribed. and to bring some good men, if you're up for it, to be there and
Absolutely.
talk things like this through and explore this issue. I think this is absolutely huge. And one of the things that really saddens me is the women who bring the boys up single-handedly at some stage get punished by the boys for what they didn't do right, because there isn't a father there to punish and it needs to come off somewhere. So it's like...
And what happens is that at a certain age or stage, boys realize that they're actually stronger than their mothers.
Yeah.
And if they haven't been taught to respect women or anybody who's physically weaker, then they're likely to take out any frustrations on somebody who's weaker. And unfortunately, mothers in this culture often do two things alternating very quickly that make for a problem. And one of them is doing too much for their growing sons, as if they're Cinderella, but then being annoyed with the sons that the sons aren't responsible and growing up and doing what they're supposed to do for themselves. So that back and forth confuses the boys, of course, but it also angers them.
Yeah.
So they've got a lot of angst in there, and they can take it out on their mom. And it may not be that they're actually physically aggressive to the mother, but it can be quite subtle and intimidating, and using their body, let's say, maybe to block the way so that the mom can't get by, or getting very close, which is intimidating, or raising their voice, or raising their hand. And even boys who would never dream of being physically aggressive to their mothers, they can have a very rude, dismissive tone. And a lot of that changes when there's a dad around to teach the boy how to respect mother, grandmothers, female teachers, anybody who's weaker.
It's really embarrassing to hear you say that, because I remember a phase in my childhood. My father wasn't around for part of the time. He was, so we fled to the UK and he was smuggled to Italy from Uganda. Long story. But I remember a stage where, without realising it, I would answer my mother back and in Welsh call her stupid, without realising that I was actually calling her stupid. It was just a throwaway word. But then when she looked at me once and I listened to the word and I realised what I was saying, it's like, oh my God, that's not me. But I guess things were slipping. I was pushing for boundaries. I was angry. And I think it's normal for boys, for everyone, to get angry and then to splash it about to see where it's going to stick and where I'm going to find the boundary.
So you've got 3% battery left.
3% battery means that's my boundary,
Right.
and I'll apologise to my mother, to her face. You know, I just feel so embarrassed thinking, and it crosses my mind probably on a monthly basis, because it's like, you know, I think boys are allowed to have love affairs with their mother and their father. Everyone's allowed to have these, and they're really important things to pass. I'm going to stop blabbing about my history and my family. Final words all round. So everyone knows what we do. You can go on the website and find out which way around we want to go with final words. Who's got final words brewing?
Should we start with Paul?
Over to you, Paul.
Yeah, just I think the importance of movement and exercise for me. That's my thing. Thank you.
And I realized that I didn't actually say what I do. So in addition to writing books, some of which are bestsellers, I am a speaker. So I give talks in schools for parents and in corporations for parents, and all over the place. I'm the director of a not-for-profit organization, so we're committed to never turning anybody away because they couldn't afford it. So we have free events a couple of times every month, as well as things that cost. And I do private consultations by Skype for parents all over the world, including in London. And any parenting issue can be improved. So that's what I want to leave you with. Family life really can be significantly calmer, easier, and happier.
I look forward to contributing more to calmer, easier, happier lives, and I can't wait for us to kick off. Partly because I'm curious about who's going to be in the room and what they bring to the table. And I love that about what we've done today, and I love that about work, is I think it's listening and responding. So Bertie's doing this, which is either I'm really stupid
1%.
Well, 1%. Over to you.
All right, so quickly, just say be yourself as a parent, and don't forget that you're learning as well to be a parent. So we don't sort of become parents and we know everything. So I think that's important to realise that, and just go for well, hope for the best, wish for the best, and prepare for the worst.
Brilliant. Thank you. See
Thank
you
you.
next week, Wednesday at 1.